Okay, Mark, you still here?
Yeah.
Alright. Not going to change the subject or anything, but I was really shitty at Salt and Sanctuary before.
hmm
I'm going to replay it again. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you have to answer them.
You're going to ask me a series of questions that I have to answer. Okay. Give me
Yes.
just a minute here. I'm getting ready to play Fallout, so hold on. All right. So go ahead.
Okay, well, there are no right or wrong answers here. What
This is
is
this is this
your
this is
name?
this is a similar situation that occurred in Fallout 4. There's a community there
Well,
called Covenant.
I'm creating a new character, so...
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
What is your name? I guess, what is my
Okay.
character's name?
What is your character's name?
Yes.
Corey Bednarchik. Bednarchik. Corey Bednarchik.
That is a hell of a
DC.
last name.
Isn't it though? That's something. It's unusual.
Bednarsinik?
Bednarchik.
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 Well, I guess I'm going to be Corey Bednarchik.
Bednarchik. Bednarchik. There you go.
Okay, am I
Next
male or
question.
female?
You are male.
Is my hair, what style of hair should I have?
What kind of game is it again?
Fighting, combat, Dark Souls style.
Okay. Well, if it's medieval fantasy kind of thing,
Yeah.
okay, then you're going to have they're going to have a bowl cut or what like a Roman legionnaire. Their haircut was was like quarter inch to half inch. That was it. Because if you have long hair, an opponent can reach up and grab it, pull your head to the side, and cut your head off. So there's a
Um,
reason. There's a reason why Roman legionnaires kept their hair very short, or most warriors during the medieval period kept their hair short.
well, for short hairs, we have bald, we have relatively short, and we have a fro. We have mildly, like, maybe an inch long on the top and then shaved on the sides.
Do that.
Okay. My hair color is black, brown, light brown, blonde, red, purple, blue. I mean, pretty much any color you want.
Red. Make it an auburn, a dark red.
Auburn is actually what the color is called.
Okay, auburn it is.
Do I have a beard?
You have a mustache and goatee.
The mustache and goatee look terrible in this game.
Does it?
It's so terrible.
We'll give him a porn stash then. You know, a fucking handlebars coming down. Mustache with going down to the handlebars come down to his chin. Give him that.
I don't really have that. I got kind of a goatee where it's like a mustache and it's just on his beard, but it doesn't go up his side of his face.
That'll work.
And I'm going to assume that that is going to be auburn as well, because it would be really
Yep.
weird if it was not.
Yeah, it could be like a dark brown.
Eye color.
Green. You're making him a kelp, basically. Which a lot of people don't realize that the poles was one of the way stops for um, the can't remember what were their names. Um, what was the master race that the Nazi called themselves?
The Aryans.
Aryans, yeah, Aryans. Basically, the Aryans and the Celts are one and the same. Do you know that? Aryans came from old Anasazi, which is northwestern India.
I don't really
And
understand where they came up with the concept of the master race. Just because usually like the healthiest, happiest people happen to be tall, blonde, white people. I mean, where did they come up with this theory?
Um, had a lot to do with Heinrich Himmler, who the head of the SS. He was a member of the Thulian Society, which was heavy into the occult, and uh, he was also the SS were basically a recreation of the Teutonic Knights, and the Teutons immigrated from Western Germany and Far Eastern Europe back in, most anthropologists say it's around 500 BC. And part of their culture was some legends that were handed down to them that they were descendant of the gods, and they were special, and they had special knowledge handed down to them, hidden knowledge, occult knowledge, and that's where a lot of the Knights Templar shit came from too. Why they were accused of witchcraft and whatnot, because they affiliated with a lot of different knightly orders. They garnered information and wisdom and knowledge from all different. They were historians, but mainly because they actually, the Knights Templar was the first organization to create the basis for the credit card system. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Reason why the Knights Templar, I'm kind of going far afield, but it has to do with what we're talking about. Prior to the First Crusade, which was in 80, basically the First Crusade, before it was actually declared the Crusade by the Pope, pilgrims were going to. The Pope declared that even if you were guilty of a mortal sin, in other words, an unforgivable sin, murder, rape, sodomy, that kind of thing, according to the church back then. You could go to Jerusalem, you could go to the Holy Land, and you could go to the pilgrimage site, 7. You could go to each one of these sites, pray for 30 days, and give them alms, prayers, fast, sackcloth and ashes, all this shit. Once you're done with that circuit, you could go to the head of the church in Jerusalem and say this, and it was recorded that you did these things, and then a missive would be sent to the Pope, and the Pope would personally say, your mortal sins are forgiven. And normally it was due to one or more of the 7 deadly sins. That's the reason why they were called the 7 deadly sins, because they were mortal sins, unforgivable. And then the Pope said, "Oh, well, here's your pass go get out of jail free card." And
Wow.
yeah, and the reason why he gave that is because people would donate to the cause.
Of course.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that the papacy, the popeship, was sold on an auction block twice, not once, twice.
To this guy who's holier than thou and pretty much writes the laws because he's the word of Christ.
He's the vicar of Christ. He's the direct representative of Christ on earth.
He's
according to
not necessarily a religious figure as much as he's the guy who won the bet.
Yeah, he won the bet. And he's a political figure. But anyway, so these people who were usually like rich and powerful, and if they were declared anathema in the church, in other words, excommunicated, they couldn't go to heaven, and they got all paranoid about it, so they would go to the Pope, "Hey, I'll give you 2/3 of my wealth, and it'll go to the church," which just so happens to be tax free. None of the kingdoms in Europe tax that. "I'll give you 2/3 of my wealth if I can be forgiven and be able to get into heaven." So the Pope said, "That's a lot of wealth. Sure, I'll put out a papal bull, a papal declaration saying that anyone." It started with one, and then of course it snowballed because the slimes like that usually have acquaintances that are also fellow slimes, and they go, "Hey, he did it. Why can't I do it?" So they have these. So what they would do is
Word would eventually get out, kind of
the
thing.
word eventually got out, and so pilgrims started going to Jerusalem from Venice. So they going to disembarking in northern. Basically it's north of the Gaza Strip right now, but there's a port there that where all the pilgrims would disembark, and they would travel down the coastline to get to Jerusalem. Well, during that time, there were a lot of bandits, and they just so happened to be Muslim. And they would raid these caravans of pilgrims, and the pilgrims that would bring their wealth with them to donate to the church down. And the bandits would go, "Wow, this is a lot of shit. Hey, we can make a living off of this." They did. So uh, at the end of the First Crusade, towards the end of the First Crusade, the Pope was getting really concerned about this because the people, these rich people who were donating their wealth, they would get to Jerusalem broke ass or murdered or have their hand cut off or whatever. And the Pope was going, wait a minute, we're not getting the money. We need to do something about this. And there were 7 knights. One of them was named Hugh de Payens. He was French. It was a French knight. He was also a very devout knight. But he wasn't a monk. He wasn't a member of any religious order. And he and the 6 other knights, they decided to get together and start protecting these pilgrims. Of course, they got a little cash underneath the table too for doing that. And when they started doing it, word got to the Pope. The Pope said, "Hey, this is kind of cool." And then they said to the Pope, Hugh de Payens said to the Pope, "Hey, there's a need for this. There needs to be a military order outside the normal chain of command of the Jesuits and the Franciscans, and we need to protect the pilgrims. We see the need for it, and of course you see the need for it because it needs more money for your coffers." And so Hugh de Payens met with the Pope, and the Pope declared that Hugh de Payens was the Grand Master of a new militant monk order called the Poor Knights of the Temple of Solomon. And so in short, Knights Templar. And so Hugh de Payens with these 6 other knights, they formed the core of the Knights Templar. And there was another knightly order, which was a monkish order, militant monkish order, called the Knights Hospitaller, and they were already based in Jerusalem. They were in charge of protecting those pilgrims who were in Jerusalem and the surrounding area from bandits like that. But they didn't. Their purview wasn't to protect pilgrims coming from the port in on the above the Gaza Strip. Acre. That's what it was called. Acre. 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 So they went from Acre all the way down into Jerusalem. And so the Knights Templar, their purview was to stay out of the Knights Templar's area of influence and just protect the pilgrims. Well, they needed a base of operations, so they took over an old church in Jerusalem. And when they took over the old church, it just happened to be next to the Wailing Wall. And right after the order was formed, and they formed their chapter house in Jerusalem, the main chapter house. Right after that, that's when the history of it starts getting all this stuff is confirmed. What I just said, confirmed through multiple primary sources. But after that is when the history starts getting kind of murky. Some rumors, they're unconfirmed. There are some documents that hint at it that when they were delving cellars to make wine cellars, they knocked down a wall and it went to a chamber, and that chamber went off into a series of tunnels, and it went off into basically underneath where the Temple of Solomon used to be. where the Muslims, they destroyed the temple and erected a mosque there. Well, there was shit underneath there, supposedly, that the Templars tumbled into. And after that, the Templars had a shit ton of money. And they eventually they became politically and financially influential. And what they proposed to the Pope, they said, hey, our resources would be better spent if we eliminate the cause of these pilgrims being killed in the first place. They're bringing a great deal of wealth into Jerusalem. And our resources are spread extremely thin. We only have 1 or 2 nights per caravan, and that's not enough against 30 or 40 men. These guys like to travel in clans, and extended families is not enough. So they proposed to the Pope and said, why don't we organize a clearinghouse in Venice? So all these people who are going to be forgiven or potentially forgiven of their morals, they can bring their wealth, whether it's either in the form of land deeds or furniture, or gold, jewelry, weapons, livestock, you name it. They can bring it into our clearinghouse in Venice, which is one of our chapter houses. And our monks there, our clerical monks, they will tally all this, the worth of it, of course, giving the church a cut, and giving the Pope his personal cut, and we'll give them a percentage of the actual value, because we have to maintain our expenses, and we have to be able to increase what we're doing so that we can have multiple chapter houses and clearing houses, which is what they did.
And then they expanded out and they make their own whore houses and gambling houses and further.
Of course, they weren't officially the owners of these establishments, but they were extremely lucrative, of course. But that was like kind of a side thing for them. Where they got their money was from these rich people, these rich slime balls, desperately wanting to get into heaven, not be cast into hell because of their fucked up behavior. And so they made more money off of that than any other enterprise. And what they would do is they would give them 10 to 20% face value of what the worth of their merchandise they would bring in. They would give them 10 to 20% of the value of it, and then would write a voucher that says how much is on account with them. And these pilgrims, they would take that scroll, that voucher, with them, and the bandits would raid them and says, all they got is fucking paper. We can't read this shit. Fuck this. They're poor. Leave them alone. They're poor like us. Because the pilgrims were told by the Templars that once you set foot on this ship leaving Venice, you're going to have to, you cast aside all thought of opulence. You're going to wear peasant clothing. And they did. A few were able to bribe some of the Templars and whatnot and wear more expensive clothing. And of course, they were singled out by the bandits. Of course, the bandits said, oh, look at the quality of this clothing. Oh, what's inside this clothing? They're gems and jewels sold inside the clothing here. Ah, cut his head off, take his shit. And so the word got around about that, and so everybody started wearing peasant clothing. And they're going, So it's better to let the Templars have 80 to 90% of what I have and be forgiven, go to heaven, than take some of it, try to attempt to take some of it with me and have the bandits spot me and then kill me. So word got around about that too. The Templars held that end of their business up, and that's what it was. So the pilgrim would take the voucher to Jerusalem, and the knights had their own ships by then, and they would bring money ships to a closer port. And these money ships were guarded, and the piers were guarded, and the route from the piers to Jerusalem was heavily guarded. And so the bandits, they go, wait a minute, no, this is not worth the risk. So
and that's where the curse of Oak Island comes from.
There you go.
I don't know if you've ever watched that show. Basically, it's they believe that one of the Knights Templar took one of their insanely loaded down, was it 4 or 5 loaded down ships, and brought out here and created this dungeon.
Yep.